The EL-16HFE is a blaster rifle manufactured by Blastech Industries and used by the New Republic. The blaster rifle is the final unlock for the assault class and requires 200 kills to acquire. The blaster has a high damage model dealing a maximum of 49 damage up to 15 meters, which drops off to a minimum of 30 damage from 40 meters. The weapon has a low automatic fire rate of 200 rounds per minute, meaning it is imperative to be accurate with this weapon. This gives the weapon a pretty poor damage per second in close quarters, ranking it 19th. This ranking only gets worse at further ranges. At mid-range it ranks 21st, and at long range it ranks 23rd. Looking at the DPS makes it appear that the HFE is fairly useless at all ranges. To gain a better understanding of how the weapon performs against infantry units, it is best to look at the TTK tables. At 10 meters or less, the blaster ranks 24th versus 150 health units, and 23rd versus 200 health units, confirming the blaster's worthlessness at short range. At 30 meters, the blaster's kill speed jumps to 10th versus 150 health units, but ranks just 24th versus 200 health units. At 50 meters and beyond, the blaster maintains a decent ranking of 13th versus 150 health units, and gains an improved ranking of 19th versus 200 health units. The blaster's kill speed at range means it is ideally used at further distances. However, the weapon is overall average at best in terms of ability to dispatch enemies quickly. The blaster gains 0.07 heat per bolt, allowing it to fire 15 shots, or deal 735 damage before overheating. It also passively loses 0.3 heat per second, and has a vent time of 1 second. Overall, the blaster has pretty good cooling power. One benefit of the blaster is its high accuracy. The weapon has little spread, meaning you can be fairly sure your bolts will hit where you are aiming. Despite this, the weapon does have relatively high recoil compared to other weapons, making it fairly difficult to use. This can, however, be greatly reduced by crouching, as with all other weapons. This is a viable tactic for this weapon due to it being most effective at further ranges, when movement and strafing are less important and accuracy is more important. The EL-16HFE has 3 unlockable attachments: stock, extended barrel, and dual scope. Stock is the first to unlock and requires 50 kills with the weapon. This attachment reduces recoil by 50%. This makes the weapon far easier to use and the recoil far more manageable, improving the weapon's reliability at range. Extended barrel requires 100 kills to unlock. The attachment increases the blaster's minimum damage from 30 to 37 and extends its damage drop-off range. This greatly impacts the blaster's kill time and damage per second at range. At 30 meters, the blaster's DPS ranking increases from 21st to 6th, and at 50 meters and beyond, it increases from 23rd to 11th, giving it a pretty good damage output at further ranges. This damage increase does not affect the TTK versus 100 health units at all. However, this was in an okay position already. However, against 200 health units, it moves up to 8th at medium range and 10th at long range. Dual scope requires 200 kills to unlock. This attachment allows the weapon to be zoomed in further by using the melee button whilst zoomed in. The two attachments I advise using are the stock and extended barrel, as I believe they provide the largest benefits. The stock makes the weapon so much easier to use, and the extended barrel's effect on the blaster's DPS is too high to overlook. The dual scope does not really provide much benefit, as you are rarely far enough away to require any extra zoom, since the standard scope magnification is fairly high anyway. Using this attachment also means you would either have to sacrifice additional damage or weapon control. Higher magnification also exaggerates the blaster's recoil. This means the gun becomes harder to control, and toggling to a higher magnification can be detrimental. The only reason to use the dual scope is to make identifying targets easier at further ranges. Whilst this is true for inherently spotting targets, you are also easier to identify, since toggling zoom causes a scope glare to shine from your blaster. After your first shot, it also becomes difficult to maintain a clear view of the target. The scope forces you to look down it when ADS, and it bounces around so much that the target is only ever momentarily within the actual scope. In the case of replacing the stock with dual scope, this issue is exacerbated as the recoil is also 50% higher. In order to get the best out of the weapon, you need to restrict your combat to medium and longer ranges and attempt to hit consistent headshots. This blaster should be treated like a marksman rifle for the assault class, and your playstyle should reflect this. You should attempt to lock down a secure spot in reliable cover with a line of sight to the objective or a common route to the objective, allowing you to pick off enemies from a slight distance. The scan dart is useful for this sort of playstyle, as you can fire it at a flanking route every time it's off cooldown to give you prior warning of enemies sneaking behind you. Overall, the weapon lacks too much in terms of DPS at all ranges to be particularly competitive. The blaster is only viable at further ranges, and this playstyle doesn't fit the assault class at all. In order to make the gun more viable, I think the rate of fire needs to be increased quite considerably to allow it to hold its own down at close range. A fire rate of 350 RPM would give the weapon a fairly average time to kill in close range and a more competitive range TTK for the previous Battlefront game, which I believe had a more enjoyable TTK. Transition over. Fulcrum out.